They say success is the best revenge. But when you close $75 million in deals before lunch and get fired by cocktail hour, by a spoiled trust fund kid who couldn't close a door, let alone a deal, success isn't enough. I didn't just want my job back. I wanted to watch his empire crumble, brick by brick, while holding the sledgehammer. This is how I took everything from the man who tried to destroy me and built something he could never touch. My name is Claire Donovan, and until 8 hours ago, I was untouchable. Senior Investment Director at Harrington Capital, the kind of title that made headhunters salivate and competitors nervous. The digital clock on my monitor had just hit 5:47 p.m. when I sealed the last signature on the Meridian Tech acquisition, $75 million in total deals closed since 9 a.m., 8 hours, 3 major clients, enough commission to put my daughter through college twice over. The trading floor erupted. Someone popped champagne, veuve clicquot, because we didn't celebrate with anything less. My phone buzzed with congratulations from every department head except one. I should have known then that something was wrong. Donovan, Marcus from Derivatives slapped my back. You just made more in a day than most of us make in a quarter. The old man's gonna promote you for sure. The old man, Richard Harrington, CEO and founder, built this firm from nothing in the 80s, turned it into a Chicago institution. Fair, brutal, brilliant, everything his son wasn't. By 7 p.m., the celebration had moved to the executive conference room. Crystal glasses, catered sushi, and enough ego to fill Soldier Field. I was mid-conversation with our biggest client when Ethan Harrington walked in. 28 years old, Wharton MBA that daddy paid for, and a cocaine habit everyone pretended not to notice. He wore his usual uniform, a $5,000 suit that couldn't hide the fact he'd never earned a dollar of his trust fund. Attention, everyone. He tapped his gold Rolex against his glass. The room quieted, though I noticed the senior partners exchange glances. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Harrington Capital's continued success. He paused, his bloodshot eyes finding mine across the room. That smile, I'd seen it before, on playground bullies and corporate sociopaths. However, in light of recent strategic realignments, we need to make some structural changes. Effective immediately. Claire Donovan's position has been terminated. The champagne glass slipped from my hand. It shattered on the marble floor, but I barely heard it over the blood rushing in my ears. Excuse me? The words came out steadier than I felt. You heard me. Ethan's smile widened. Security will escort you out. Your personal items will be mailed. I just closed $75 million, which belongs to Harrington Capital, not you. We appreciate your service, but you're simply not a cultural fit moving forward. Cultural fit? Corporate speak for, I don't like you, and I don't need a real reason. 2 security guards appeared at my elbows, Tony and James, guys I'd shared coffee with every morning for 6 years. Tony couldn't meet my eyes. Ma'am, we need to go. The room was silent. 30 executives, all staring at their shoes or their phones. Cowards. Every single one of them knew this was wrong. But Ethan's last name was on the building. I straightened my spine, lifted my chin. This is a mistake, Ethan. Those clients signed with me, not... The contracts are with the firm. Don't embarrass yourself further. The walk to the elevator felt like a funeral march. My heels clicked against marble, each step echoing in the silence. 6 years of 80-hour weeks. 6 years of missing school plays and bedtime stories. 6 years of building this firm's reputation, only to be discarded like week-old sushi. The elevator doors were closing when Richard Harrington stepped out of his private office. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. He knew. The old bastard knew what his son had done and was letting it happen. Outside, Chicago's November wind cut through my dress like a blade. No coat. It was still in my office that wasn't mine anymore. I stood on the sidewalk, watching through the windows as the party continued above. Someone had already cleaned up my champagne glass. My phone rang. Sarah, my babysitter. Ms. Donovan? Emma's asking when you'll be home. Should I put her to bed? Emma, 8 years old, believed her mom could conquer the world. What would I tell her? "I'll be home soon," I managed. "Tell her I'll be there for breakfast." I ended the call and looked back up at the building. Ethan stood at the window, raising his glass in a mock toast. He thought he'd won. Thought he'd removed a threat to his inevitable succession. But Ethan Harrington had just made the worst mistake of his privileged life. He turned me into something far more dangerous than a competitor. He turned me into an enemy with nothing left to lose. The Uber ride home stretched through Chicago's glittering skyline, each building a reminder of deals I'd never close, bonuses I'd never see. The driver kept glancing at me in the mirror. A woman in a $3,000 dress crying in his back seat wasn't unusual for a Tuesday night in the financial district. Home was a 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park. Not penthouse luxury, but comfortable, safe, expensive enough that without my salary, we'd last maybe 3 months before the walls started closing in. Emma was already asleep, curled up with her stuffed rabbit, unaware that her college fund had just evaporated along with my career. I kissed her forehead, inhaling that little kid's smell of strawberry shampoo and possibility. She had my stubborn chin, her father's green eyes. The only good thing that bastard ever gave me before he decided a younger secretary was more interesting than his family. I poured 3 fingers of whiskey, Macallan 18, a closing gift from a grateful client, and stood at my window. Below, normal people lived normal lives. They hadn't just lost everything to a coked-up nepotism case who probably couldn't spell derivative without autocorrect. The whiskey burned, but not as much as the humiliation. I'd been so fucking proud walking into that building every morning. Claire Donovan, the woman who clawed her way from South Side Chicago to the 40th floor. No connections, no trust fund, just talent and the willingness to outwork everyone else. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter, still logged into Harrington's network. IT wouldn't cut my access until morning. I scrolled through my contacts, calculating who might hire me, who'd return my calls. The number was smaller than I wanted to admit. Ethan would poison every well in Chicago. He had that power, that reach. My phone buzzed. "Marcus. Claire, what the hell happened? This is insane." Then another. "Keep your head up. You're too talented for this to stop you." Empty words from cowards who'd watched it happen. But one message made me pause. Unknown number. Check your personal email. A friend. I opened Gmail. One new message, no sender name, subject line. "He's not as smart as he thinks." Inside were 3 PDF attachments. Financial records. Harrington Capital transactions I'd never seen before. All authorized by Ethan. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Transfers that didn't match any client accounts I knew. The numbers were staggering. Millions flowing through accounts that existed only on paper. My hands shook as I opened the second document. Email threads between Ethan and someone named Volkov, Russian surname. Discussions about cleaning funds through real estate investments, the kind of conversations that ended careers, or worse, in federal prison. The third file was a recorded phone call, compressed into an audio file. Ethan's voice, slurred and arrogant. "I don't care if the SEC sniffs around. My father owns half the regulatory board. We're untouchable." I sat back. Whiskey forgotten. This was it. The reason he'd fired me. Not because I was a threat to his position, but because I was getting too close to his operation. Those 3 clients I'd closed today, I'd been pushing for transparency, demanding clean documentation. I'd been inadvertently threatening his house of cards. The rage that had been simmering since the elevator crystallized into something colder, sharper. Ethan thought he was untouchable because of his last name, because Daddy built an empire. But empires built on corruption had a particular way of falling, spectacularly, publicly, and taking everyone involved down with them. I pulled up my contacts again, scrolling past the financial sector to a different kind of ally. Michael Torres, securities lawyer, former DOJ prosecutor. We'd dated briefly 2 years ago. Ended amicably when work consumed us both. More importantly, Ethan had tried to poach his biggest client last year with forged documents. Michael had won the case, but the victory had been Pyrrhic, his reputation damaged by Ethan's media connections. Michael, it's Claire. I know it's late. Claire. His voice was warm, surprised. I heard what happened. Fucking Harrington Jr., right? How did you... News travels fast in this city. You okay? I looked at the files on my screen. I'm about to be... Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere private? A pause. He knew that tone. The old place? 8 a.m. The old place? A diner in Wicker Park where we'd spent Sunday mornings, back when we thought we had time for things like love and breakfast. I'll bring coffee, I said. After I hung up, I sat in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep. She wanted to be a doctor. She'd announced last week, help people, make the world better. The exact opposite of what I'd been doing, helping rich people get richer. But first, I had to survive, had to fight, not just for me, but for her. For every woman who'd been discarded when she became too successful, too threatening. For everyone who'd been stepped on by entitled pricks like Ethan Harrington. He thought he'd destroyed me tonight. But you can't destroy someone who's already been broken and rebuilt. My ex-husband had taught me that. Poverty had taught me that. Now, I was going to teach Ethan Harrington something. Never underestimate a single mother with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The diner's fluorescent lights flickered like they had 2 years ago, casting the same sickly glow over cracked vinyl booths. Michael was already there, corner table, back to the wall. Old prosecutor habits. He looked good. Tired, but good. Silver threading through his black hair now, making him look distinguished rather than old. You look like hell, he said, sliding a coffee across the scarred table. Charming as ever. I sat down, pulled out my laptop. How much do you know about what Ethan's been doing? Rumors, mostly. Money moving where it shouldn't. Clients who don't exist on paper but somehow generate millions in fees. He leaned forward. Why? I turned the screen toward him, watched his expression shift from curiosity to shock to something predatory. Michael had the kind of mind that could see 12 moves ahead. Chess while everyone else played checkers. Jesus Christ, Claire. This is... Where did you get this? Anonymous source. Someone inside who wants him gone as much as we do. He scrolled through the files, his coffee going cold. This is money laundering, federal crime. The Volkov connection alone could trigger a RICO investigation. Can you use it? Not directly. Illegally obtained evidence. But... He smiled, the same smile that had once decimated defense attorneys. If someone were to, say, notice unusual trading patterns and report them to the SEC, and if that report happened to point investigators in the right direction, and if those investigators happened to find evidence on their own? Exactly. We spent the next 2 hours mapping out the connections. Ethan had been clever, but not clever enough. He'd used Harrington Capital's legitimate infrastructure to hide his operation, believing his father's reputation would shield him. But that same infrastructure left digital fingerprints everywhere. There's more, I said, ordering another coffee. The clients I closed yesterday, they're clean, completely legitimate, but they signed with me personally, not just the firm. The contracts have a specific clause about portfolio management continuity. Michael raised an eyebrow. You wrote in a key person clause. Standard in my contracts. If the managing director changes within 6 months, clients can withdraw without penalty. And you just got fired, which means $75 million in assets could walk out the door if those clients choose. I pulled up my phone. They've been texting all morning. They want to follow me wherever I go. You can't solicit them. Non-compete clause. I don't have to solicit. They're reaching out to me. And my non-compete? I smiled. Ethan was so eager to get me out, he forgot to enforce the standard exit procedures. No signed termination agreement, no non-compete confirmation. Technically, I'm free and clear. Michael laughed, actually laughed. He really is an idiot. Arrogant. There's a difference. Idiots can be harmless. Over the next hour, we built our strategy. Michael would prepare the SEC filing, carefully crafted to raise questions without making accusations. I would respond to my clients' concerns, professionally suggesting they might want to review their contracts given the structural changes at Harrington Capital. There's something else, Michael said as we prepared to leave. Why did your source contact you? What's their angle? I'd been wondering the same thing. Best guess? Someone who's been waiting for Ethan to implode but needed a catalyst. Someone who couldn't act directly but could arm someone who would. His father? Richard Harrington would never destroy his own firm. He wouldn't, but he might let his son destroy himself to save it. The thought chilled me. Richard Harrington playing chess with all of us, sacrificing his own son to protect his empire. It was exactly the kind of cold calculation that built fortunes in this city. My phone rang. Emma's school. Ms. Donovan, Emma's teacher here. She's fine, but there's been an incident. Some men came to the school asking about picking her up. They said they were from your office, but when we called Harrington Capital, they said you no longer worked there. My blood froze. Did they give names? They left when we said we needed to verify. Should we be concerned? I'll be right there. I hung up, hands trembling. I have to go. Michael grabbed my arm. What's wrong? Someone just tried to pick up Emma from school. Someone claiming to be from my office. His expression darkened. Claire, if Ethan's involved with the Russians, if he thinks you're a threat. I know. I pulled up the Uber app, then stopped. Uber meant credit cards, digital trails. Can you drive me? 20 minutes later, I held Emma so tight she complained. The principal assured me they'd increase security, that no one would release her to anyone but me. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Not if Ethan was desperate enough to involve my daughter. That night, after Emma was asleep, I made a decision. Playing defense wouldn't work. Ethan had already escalated beyond corporate warfare. This was personal now. He'd threatened my child. I opened a new email, addressing it to every major financial journalist in Chicago. Subject: Whistleblower report. Suspicious activities at Harrington Capital. I have information regarding potential financial crimes that may interest federal investigators. My finger hovered over send. Once I pushed this button, there was no going back. War would be declared. A text came through. The unknown number again. He's moving money tonight, cleaning house. Whatever you're planning, do it now. I hit send. Then I texted my clients. All three of them. Gentlemen, I wanted to inform you of my availability for independent consultation. I'm launching Phoenix Strategies, a boutique firm focused on transparent, ethical investment management. Your contracts with Harrington Capital may have provisions you should review. 3 responses within minutes. All interested. All ready to move their money. Ethan Harrington thought he'd won by firing me. But he'd just learned the first rule of war. Never leave an enemy wounded but alive. Especially not a mother protecting her young. Phoenix Strategies existed only on paper, a Delaware LLC registered at 2 a.m. through LegalZoom, operating out of my kitchen table. But in finance, perception was reality. I had business cards printed by noon, a website live by 3, and a temporary office space in a West Loop co-working building by 5. Total investment, $3,000. I couldn't afford. Michael worked his contacts at the SEC while I played a different game. The 3 clients from my final day at Harrington were eager to jump ship. But I needed more. I needed to gut Ethan's operation from the inside out. Claire, this is insane, my former assistant Jennifer whispered into her phone. She still worked at Harrington, calling me from a bathroom stall. Ethan's in full panic mode. He's been screaming at IT all morning about some leak. What kind of leak? Financial records. Someone's been feeding information to the Tribune. He's convinced it's someone in-house. Good. Let him tear his own people apart looking for a ghost. Jen, I need a favor. Nothing illegal, just Information. I'm listening. Which clients has Ethan been managing personally? A pause. The weird ones. Offshore holdings, mostly. Companies nobody's heard of with generic names. Prime Holdings, Atlas Ventures, that sort of thing. Shell companies. Perfect. One more thing, has Richard been in the office? Haven't seen him in 3 days. Rumor is he's in D.C. meeting with regulators. The chess master, moving his pieces. I was starting to understand the game now. Richard knew his son was dirty, had maybe always known. But blood was blood, until it threatened the kingdom. Then even sons became expendable. That evening, I met with David Park, CEO of Meridian Tech, and my biggest catch from that final day. We sat in his Lakeshore Drive penthouse, the city glittering below us like scattered diamonds. 25 million, he said, swirling bourbon and crystal. That's what I'm ready to move to Phoenix Strategies. Today. David, I appreciate. There's a condition. He set down his glass. I want you to bury that little shit. I studied him carefully. Why? 6 months ago, Ethan approached me with an investment opportunity. Off the books, he said. Guaranteed returns. When I declined, he implied things could get difficult for Meridian's IPO. He threatened you? Extortion, dressed up in Harvard vocabulary. I recorded the conversation. He pulled out his phone, played a recording, Ethan's voice, clear as day, suggesting that regulatory approvals could be expedited or delayed depending on cooperation. David, this is evidence, which I'll provide to your lawyer friend, along with my full cooperation with any investigation. He leaned forward. But I want him destroyed, Claire, not just fired, destroyed. I thought of Emma, of those men at her school. Get in line. The next morning, Chicago's financial world woke up to a Tribune exclusive. Questions raised about unusual trading patterns at Harrington Capital. The article was carefully worded, all speculation and anonymous sources, but it was enough. Buy, market, open. Harrington's stock had dropped 12%. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Journalists, competitors, and most importantly, clients. Everyone smelled blood in the water. Ms. Donovan? A new voice, slight Russian accent. My name is Alexei Volkov. My blood chilled. How did you get this number? Please, don't hang up. I think we can help each other. I doubt that. Ethan Harrington owes my employers significant money he's been unable to deliver because of recent complications. We would prefer to resolve this through proper channels rather than alternative methods. The threat was politely delivered but unmistakable. What do you want from me? Information? Documentation? Evidence that our investments were mismanaged? In exchange, we ensure no further interest in you or your family. They were abandoning Ethan. Even his criminal partners could see the writing on the wall. I'll consider it, I said, having no intention of getting within a mile of Russian money. That afternoon, Michael called with news. The SEC is opening a formal investigation. They're freezing any transfers from those shell companies. How long before they move on Ethan? Days, maybe a week. They're building the case carefully. This is Richard Harrington's son, after all. But I couldn't wait a week. That evening, another text from my anonymous source. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. Richard returns tonight. Ethan planning something desperate. Be careful. I sat in Emma's room, watching her do homework. She was struggling with fractions, tongue stuck out in concentration, so innocent, so unaware of the war raging around her. Mom, why are you home so much now? She asked suddenly. Just making some changes at work, sweetheart. Good changes. I thought about the company I was building, the corrupt executive I was destroying, the future I was fighting for. Yeah, baby. Good changes. That night, I prepared for the final phase. Tomorrow. Harrington Capital's board would meet. Ethan would try to save himself, probably by throwing others under the bus. But I had one last card to play, courtesy of my anonymous friend. A USB drive had been left under my door that evening. On it, security footage from Harrington Capital's servers. Ethan, clearly high. Accessing restricted files. Ethan, meeting with Volkov in his office after hours. And most damning, Ethan transferring client funds to personal accounts. His father's passwords clearly visible on his screen. He'd been stealing from his own father. I made copies, sent one to Michael, one to the Tribune, one to David Park. Then I did something perhaps stupid, but necessary. I sent one to Richard Harrington's personal email with a simple message. Your son destroyed my career. Now I'm returning the favor. But you already knew this would happen, didn't you? CD. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Donovan. Richard's voice, calm as always. I believe we should talk. I'll see you at tomorrow's board meeting. You're not a board member. No, but I am Meridian Tech's new investment advisor. David Park has requested I attend as his representative. Silence. Then, surprisingly, a chuckle. You've played this well, Claire. Better than I expected. Is that why you've been feeding me information, using me to clean up your mess? My son made his choices. I'm simply ensuring the firm survives them. And me? Collateral damage? No. You were the catalyst. The sword I couldn't swing myself. He paused. Tomorrow will be instructive. The line went dead. Tomorrow. Everything would end, or everything would begin. Either way. Ethan Harrington was about to learn what happened when you declared war on someone with nothing left to lose. The Tribune's morning edition hit the stands at 4 a.m. By 4:30, my phone was exploding. Harrington Capital hemorrhaging. 3 major clients pull $75 million following executive exodus. The article was beautifully brutal. It detailed the client departures, quoted, sources familiar with the matter about internal chaos, and posed carefully crafted questions about regulatory compliance. No direct accusations, that would come later, but enough blood in the water to start a feeding frenzy. I dressed carefully that morning. Black Armani suit, the one I'd bought after my first $1 million deal. War paint in the form of red lipstick. Emma noticed. You look like you're going to fight someone, she said over breakfast. Just a meeting, baby. Are you gonna win? I kissed her forehead. Always do. The Harrington Capitol building looked different in daylight, without the authority of my key card. Security tried to stop me until David Park appeared, all smiles and expensive teeth. She's with me, he said simply. And doors opened. Money had that effect. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to an execution, though whose remained to be seen. Jennifer waited by the elevator banks, eyes wide. Claire, you shouldn't be here. Ethan's completely lost it. He's been here all night, shredding documents, making calls. Where's Richard? Boardroom. They've been in emergency session since 7. David and I walked toward the boardroom, past the trading floor where I'd once ruled. Heads turned, whispers followed. Some looked sympathetic, others terrified. Everyone knew something monumental was happening. Through the glass walls, I could see them. 12 board members, Richard at the head, and Ethan pacing like a caged animal. His usual polish was gone, wrinkled shirt, stubble, eyes wild with desperation or stimulants. Mr. Park. Richard stood as we entered. Ms. Donovan, I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. My investment advisor, David said smoothly. Given the circumstances, I wanted her perspective on our continued relationship with Harrington Capital. Ethan spun around. She can't be here. This is a closed session. Sit down, Ethan. Richard's voice could have frozen hell. Ms. Donovan, please continue. I opened my laptop, connected to the presentation system. Gentlemen, I'm here to discuss the systematic fraud that's been perpetrated under your noses. This is ridiculous, Ethan shouted. She's bitter about being terminated. The SEC doesn't open investigations based on bitterness. I clicked to the first slide. Financial records, shell companies, money flows that made no sense unless you understood what you were looking at. These transactions, I pointed to the screen, show millions in client funds diverted to offshore accounts. Accounts controlled not by Harrington Capital, but by Ethan personally. The room erupted, board members shouting questions, Ethan screaming denials. Through it all, Richard sat silent, watching his son with an expression I couldn't read. You have no proof. Ethan grabbed the table edge. These are fabricated. Actually, Michael Torres entered the room, perfectly timed. The SEC disagrees. Gentlemen, I'm here representing Meridian Tech and two other clients in their formal complaint against Harrington Capital. We have recordings. He placed a recorder on the table, hit play. Ethan's voice filled the room, drunk and arrogant, discussing how to hide money from the old man and the board. How stupid they all were. How easy it was to manipulate the system his father built. Turn it off, Richard said quietly. There's more, I said. Mr. Volkov sends his regards. Ethan. He's quite upset about his missing $30 million. Ethan went white. You don't understand. They'll kill. You? I smiled coldly. That's no longer my concern. Although they did seem very interested in the documentation I didn't provide them. Yet, you vindictive bitch. Enough. Richard stood. Ethan Harrington, you're terminated from Harrington Capital effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't. I'm your son. My son died the moment he betrayed this firm. Richard's voice was ice. The one standing here is just a criminal wearing his face. Security entered, Tony and James again. But this time, they weren't escorting me. Ethan fought them, screaming threats, promising to destroy everyone. As he passed me, he lunged, but Tony held him back. This isn't over, he hissed. Yes, I said quietly. It is. After they dragged him out, the room sat in stunned silence. Richard cleared his throat. Gentlemen, we need damage control. I propose... Actually, David interrupted. I have a proposal. Phoenix Strategies, Ms. Donovan's firm, will be handling Meridian Tech's portfolio going forward. However, we're willing to maintain a strategic partnership with Harrington Capital, under new leadership. Of course. Richard looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. You planned this. I planned to survive. Your son had other ideas. The leaked information, that was you? That was someone who knew Ethan needed to be stopped. Someone who couldn't act directly but could provide tools. Understanding dawned in his eyes. We both knew, but neither would say it. Richard had orchestrated his son's downfall, and I'd been his weapon of choice. Ms. Donovan. One of the board members spoke up. Would you consider a position here? Senior Executive Vice President, perhaps? I thought of the office I'd lost, the career destroyed, the victory I'd just achieved. It would be so easy to say yes, to take back what was stolen. No, I said, closing my laptop. I have a company to build, but thank you for the offer. As I left, Richard followed me to the elevator. You could have had everything, he said. I already do. My daughter's safe, my clients trust me. And your son will likely be in federal custody by week's end. The Russians will find him before or after prison. Either way, not my problem. The elevator dinged. As the doors opened, Richard spoke once more. I'm sorry. For what he did to you. For what I let happen. No, you're not. You needed someone to take Ethan down without destroying your legacy. I was convenient. Perhaps. But I'm sorry about one thing. What's that? That I didn't hire you instead of him 6 years ago. This firm would have been yours one day. The doors closed between us before I could respond. Not that I had anything to say. Some bridges were meant to burn. In the lobby, my phone buzzed. 3 more clients wanting to move to Phoenix Strategies. By the time I reached the street, it was 5. The November wind didn't feel cold anymore. It felt like freedom. The next 3 weeks should have been victorious. Phoenix Strategies had 8 clients, 40 million under management, and a real office in the Loop with a view of the river. But Ethan Harrington wasn't done fighting. He was just fighting dirtier. It started small. My credit card suddenly declined at Emma's doctor's office. Then my car insurance was mysteriously canceled. Bank accounts frozen for suspicious activity. Each incident took hours to resolve. Death by 1,000 bureaucratic cuts. He's got people everywhere, Michael warned over coffee. Friends, dealers, people who owe him favors. The SEC has him under investigation, but he's not arrested yet. Why not? Daddy's lawyers. They're stalling, claiming mental health issues, demanding psychiatric evaluations, buying time. Time for Ethan to make my life hell. The parking garage attendant at my building quit after someone threatened his family. My doorman stopped making eye contact. Even the barista at my regular coffee shop seemed nervous when I walked in. Then it escalated. Tuesday night, 2 a.m. The sound of breaking glass woke me. My living room window shattered. A brick with a note. You took everything. Now it's your turn. I called the police, filed a report. They promised increased patrols, but we all knew how much that was worth. I moved Emma to my mother's house in Milwaukee the next day. It's just for a few weeks, baby, I promised, holding her tight at the train station. Is this because of your work stuff? Kids knew more than we gave them credit for. Yeah, but it's almost over. She looked at me with those green eyes, so serious. Be careful. Mom. Wednesday brought a new threat. Jennifer called, whispering frantically. Claire, get out of your office. Now. What? I overheard Ethan on a call. He knows where your office is. He's sending someone. The door burst open, not violently, worse, casually. 3 men in expensive suits walked in like they owned the place. The leader, silver-haired with dead eyes, smiled. Ms. Donovan. Mr. Harrington sends his regards. Get out before I call security. Please do. We're just here to talk. He sat in my client chair, uninvited. You've caused our mutual friend significant difficulties. Your mutual friend caused his own difficulties. Perhaps. But you see, he owes certain people considerable sums. People who don't accept bankruptcy as payment. Volkov's people. Of course Ethan would weaponize his own debts. That's between you and him. It was. Until you froze his assets. Now he can't pay. Which makes you problematic. Are you threatening me? Threatening? He seemed genuinely amused. No. Ms. Donovan. We're business people, like yourself. We're simply explaining market dynamics. When someone disrupts cash flow, markets correct themselves. Get out. They left without argument, which was somehow worse. The message was delivered. I was now on the Russian mob's radar because Ethan couldn't pay his debts. Michael found me an hour later, still shaking. We need the FBI, he said. This is beyond corporate warfare now. The FBI can't protect me 24/7, and they definitely can't protect Emma. So what do you do? I thought about Richard's words, about being a weapon, about burning bridges. We end this. Tonight. I made 3 calls. First, to a journalist at the Wall Street Journal who'd been begging for an exclusive. Second, to David Park, who had connections I didn't want to know about. Third, to someone I'd sworn I'd never contact again. Marcus, it's Claire. I need the nuclear option. Marcus Chen, former NSA, now private security, and the man who'd helped me prove my ex-husband was hiding assets during our divorce. How nuclear are we talking? Scorched earth. That night, while Ethan partied at a River North club, Jennifer tracking his location through Instagram, Marcus's team went to work. Every email Ethan had ever sent, every text, every deleted file, all of it suddenly appeared on WikiLeaks. The crown jewel was a video from his cloud storage, Ethan, high out of his mind, recording himself moving money, laughing about how stupid his father was, literally creating evidence of his own crimes. But worse were the other videos, him with escorts, doing lines of cocaine off his father's desk, and one particularly damning recording of him discussing taking care of a former employee who'd threatened to expose him. By morning, Harrington Air was trending globally. The FBI arrived at Ethan's penthouse at 6 a.m. He'd been up all night, watching his life implode in real time. No more stalling, no more lawyers. The evidence was so overwhelming, so public, that even Richard's influence couldn't stop it. I watched the arrest from my office, surrounded by my employees. Yes, employees. 5 of them now. Ethan being led out in handcuffs, photographers everywhere, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. My phone rang. Richard. Was this necessary? He asked. He threatened my daughter. Silence. Then, the Russians? David Park has Asian connections who've explained the situation to Mr. Volkov. Ethan's debts are now Ethan's problem alone. You've destroyed him. No. I gave him exactly what he gave me, a public humiliation and the loss of everything he valued. The only difference is he actually committed crimes. The firm will survive. You'll make sure of it. You always knew this might be necessary. That's why you chose me. He sighed. The board wants to offer you a partnership. Full equity. Your name on the door. Donovan Harrington Capital. Harrington Donovan. But yes. I looked at my small office, at the Phoenix Strategies logo Jennifer had designed, at the team I'd built from nothing. No. But I'll accept a strategic partnership, shared deals, split commissions, keep your name, Richard. It's all you have left of him anyway. 2 days later, Ethan was denied bail, flight risk and danger to witnesses. The Russians had already moved on to pressuring his actual assets, his penthouse, his cars, his art collection, all being liquidated to pay debts that would never quite be paid in full. I brought Emma home that weekend. She hugged me tight, then pulled back to look at my face. Did you win? I thought about Ethan in federal lockup, about Phoenix Strategies' growing client list, about the hard-earned respect in Richard's voice. Yeah, baby, I won. Good, she said fiercely. Nobody messes with my mom. That night, I stood at my repaired window, looking out at Chicago's lights. The city looked the same, but everything had changed. I'd been forced into a war I didn't want, fought battles I shouldn't have had to fight, and emerged with scars that would never quite heal. But I'd survived. More than that, I'd thrived. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations, Ms. Donovan. A friend. I deleted it without responding. Some allies were better left in shadows. Tomorrow. I had 3 client meetings, 2 interviews for new analysts, and a conference call with investors interested in taking Phoenix Strategies national. The war was over, but the empire was just beginning. The Harrington Capital shareholders meeting was scheduled for December 15th, 3 weeks after Ethan's arrest. What should have been my moment of triumph turned into something far more dangerous. I was reviewing contracts when Jennifer burst into my office. Face pale. Claire, turn on CNBC. Now. The headline made my blood freeze. Ethan Harrington released on bail. Star witness disappears. The anchor continued. Posted $12 million in bail through unknown sources. The prosecution's key witness, former CFO Martin Walsh, hasn't been seen in 48 hours. My phone rang immediately. Michael. Get security, now. He's out and he's desperate. How the hell did he make bail? Someone with deep pockets wants him free, either to help him or to collect what he owes. Either way, you're in danger. I called the school first, confirmed Emma was in class with security present, Then I called Marcus. I need a team, professional protection. Already on it. 2 guys are headed to your office now. Claire, there's something else. Ethan's been making calls, lots of them, to people who make problems disappear. The shareholders' meeting was in 72 hours. If Ethan wanted to make a move, it would be before then, while he still had any leverage left. That night, I worked late. 2 security guards stationed outside. The office was quiet, just the hum of computers and distant traffic. I was deep in spreadsheets when the lights flickered. Then, darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red. My security burst through the door. We need to move. Now. What's happening? Building's been breached. Service elevator. Let's go. We made it 3 steps before the stairwell door exploded open. Not my security. They were already down, unconscious or worse. Ethan walked in, flanked by 2 men I recognized from newspaper photos. Volkov's enforcers. Hello, Claire. Ethan looked terrible. Hollow eyes, weight loss, the shine of fever or withdrawal. We need to talk. Your bail conditions. Don't allow me within 500 feet of you, I know. He smiled, ugly and desperate. But bail conditions don't matter when you're already dead. Ethan, you destroyed everything. My father won't even look at me. My accounts are frozen. These gentlemen, he gestured to the Russians, are quite insistent about their money. Money you stole and lost. Money I need to pay back, or they kill me. But here's the thing. They'll kill you too. Just for the inconvenience. Unless what? You transfer Phoenix Strategies assets to accounts I control. 40 million should cover my debts and disappearance costs. You're insane. I'm desperate. There's a difference. He pulled out a gun. Of course, he had a gun. The meeting is in 3 days. You're going to stand up and confess to framing me. Say you fabricated evidence out of jealousy. Clear my name. No one would believe. They'll believe Richard when he confirms it. See, I know something you don't. My father needs me innocent to save the firm from RICO charges. If I go down, Harrington Capital goes down, he'll play along. One of the Russians spoke. Ms. Donovan, this is simple business. Give us money, everyone walks away. I thought about Emma, asleep at my mother's house. Safe for now. But for how long if I gave in? Ethan would never stop, never let me be free. I need time to transfer. You have 10 minutes. Start typing. I sat at my computer, hands trembling. 40 million in client funds. Their trust, their futures, everything I'd built. But I'd learned something these past weeks. When someone declares war, you don't defend, you destroy. I started typing, but not transfer authorizations. Instead, I opened an encrypted email to Michael, copying the FBI, SEC, and every major news outlet. Live streaming, Ethan Harrington violating bail, armed, attempting extortion at Phoenix Strategies offices. I'd installed cameras after the brick incident. Everything was being recorded, uploaded to the cloud in real time. What are you typing? Ethan moved closer. Transfer codes. They're complex. He leaned over my shoulder, gun pressed to my ribs, close enough that the camera would catch everything. His threats, the Russians, the confession about his father's complicity. Done, I said, hitting enter. Good. Now. The stairwell door burst open again. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Drop the weapon. Chaos. Ethan spun, gun swinging wildly. The Russians reached for their own weapons. I dropped, rolling under the desk as gunfire erupted. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. When silence fell, Ethan was on the ground, shoulder bleeding, screaming. The Russians were face down, cuffed, and I was shaking uncontrollably, but alive. Agent Martinez helped me up. You okay? How did you... Your message, plus Mr. Torres called us 20 minutes ago. He was tracking Ethan's phone. Michael burst in, followed by paramedics. Claire, Jesus, I thought... I'm okay. I wasn't. But I would be. Ethan was loaded onto a stretcher, still conscious, still raging. You think you've won, he screamed. My father will destroy you. The Russians will find you. Your father, Agent Martinez said calmly, is already in custody. Seems someone sent us interesting recordings about RICO violations and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Ethan's face went white. He looked at me, understanding finally dawning. The anonymous source, he whispered. I leaned close, making sure only he could hear. Your father didn't betray you, Ethan. He just chose the firm over his son. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to think about it. 20 to life, I'm guessing. They wheeled him out, his screams echoing down the hallway. The last time I'd ever have to hear his voice. Richard Harrington was released 2 days later. Charges dropped in exchange for cooperation. The firm would survive. Barely. But his son wouldn't. And neither would his legacy. It was just another cautionary tale about greed and privilege now. The shareholders' meeting proceeded without me. I had more important things to do, like hold my daughter and build something that no one could ever take away again. 6 months later, I stood in the same building where I'd been humiliated, but everything was different. The 40th floor no longer belonged to Harrington Capital. That firm had dissolved 3 months after Ethan's conviction. 25 to life for financial crimes, attempted murder, and conspiracy. The Russians got their own cells courtesy of RICO charges. The floor belonged to Phoenix Strategies now. We'd bought it for 30 cents on the dollar in the liquidation sale. Ms. Donovan, my new CFO knocked. They're ready for you. The conference room was packed, 50 employees, 3 times what we'd had during the crisis. Jennifer ran operations now, having earned her MBA on my dime. Michael had joined as general counsel. Even Marcus consulted on security for our high-profile clients. But today wasn't about business. Today was about something else. Richard Harrington sat in the corner, aged 20 years in 6 months. He'd asked for this meeting through lawyers, then through mutual contacts, finally through a handwritten letter that simply said, "Please." "Thank you for seeing me," he began, voice hollow. "You have 5 minutes." I wanted to apologize. Properly. Not for Ethan, he made his choices, but for using you. You didn't use me. You armed me. He nodded slowly. Perhaps. But I knew. I knew what he was capable of. I should have stopped him years ago. But you didn't. You enabled him until he threatened your empire. Yes. He stood, placed an envelope on the table. Ethan's trust fund, 30 million, legitimately earned before his crimes. It should go to you. I don't want your money. Then donate it. Create a fund for women forced out of finance by men like my son. Just do something good with it. I picked up the envelope. Inside was a check and a photo. Ethan as a child, bright-eyed and innocent, before whatever poison turned him into a monster took hold. Why show me this? To remind you that even monsters were children once. That success without conscience creates things like him. Richard moved to leave, then paused. You asked me once if I was sorry. I wasn't then. I am now. He left without another word. The last of the Harrington dynasty, broken by his own creation. That evening, I sat in my office, the same one Ethan had occupied when he'd ruled this floor. The city sparkled below, unchanged despite all our little wars. Emma was doing homework in the corner, safe and sound. She'd insisted on coming to the office, wanting to see where Mommy worked. Mom! She looked up from her math. Are you happy now? I thought about it. Really thought about it. The money was better than ever. Phoenix Strategies managed 200 million in assets. The respect was real, earned in blood and battle. But happiness? I'm free, I said finally. That's better than happy. What's the difference? Happy depends on other people. Free means no one can take anything from you again. She nodded, 8 years old going on 40, and returned to her fractions. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognize the pattern now. Congratulations on the acquisition. You've built something remarkable. A friend. This time, I responded, thank you. For everything. You earned it, every victory, every scar. Enjoy the view from the top. RFE. Richard Harrington. He'd been my anonymous source all along, feeding me information to destroy his own son. The ultimate corporate patricide, executed through a proxy war. I should have hated him for it. Instead, I felt something like pity. Imagine having to destroy your own child to save your legacy, only to lose both anyway. David Park called, breaking my reflection. Claire, saw the news about the acquisition. Drinks to celebrate? Rain check. I have a date with a third grader and her math homework. You've changed. No, I just remembered what actually matters. After Emma finished her homework, we walked to the windows, looking out at the city together. It's pretty, she said. It's dangerous, I corrected. Beautiful things usually are. Is that why you had to fight that bad man? No. Baby, I fought him because he tried to take away our future, and nobody... I pulled her close. Nobody gets to do that. Later, after I'd tucked Emma in at home, I stood in my kitchen with a glass of wine, thinking about the journey. From that night I'd stood here, fired and humiliated, to now, owner of an investment firm worth $50 million and growing. The cost had been high. Trust was harder now. I saw threats everywhere, kept security close, background checked everyone twice. Some nights, I still woke up feeling that gun against my ribs. But I'd learned something valuable. When someone comes for you, you don't just defend, you destroy so completely that no one ever tries again. My laptop chimed. Another client inquiry, this one from overseas. Phoenix Strategies was going international next month. New offices in London and Hong Kong. The empire I'd built from Ethan's ashes was spreading across the globe. I raised my glass to the empty room, to the ghosts of who we'd all been before this started. You wanted a war, I said to the silence. You got a revolution? Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness, unaware and uncaring about our little drama. But somewhere in a federal prison, Ethan Harrington was learning what I'd learned that night he'd fired me, that everything could be taken away in an instant. The only difference was I'd gotten it all back, and more, so much more. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate revenge and redemption. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed Claire's journey of taking back everything and more, please subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice and triumph. Share your thoughts about what you would have done in Claire's position. Until next time. Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's absolute victory.